Good evening. Behind every breakthrough model, every intelligent agent, every transformative application lies an invisible foundation. And this invisible foundation is of massive, massive chips, sprawling data centers, and mounting energy demands. That's going to be the panel discussion. Let me introduce my panelists. Prith Banerjee is from Synopsys. He's pushing the frontiers of AI-driven chip design. Samhita from Resilience AI, mapping climate risks to build truly resilient systems. We have Keshav Reddy from Equal AI. He is trying to democratize powerful AI for India's diverse realities. And Martin Tisney is from AI Collaborative and Current AI, championing open, equitable, non-aligned infrastructure. I'm going to begin with you, Prith. With AI now designing what is being seen as power AI, are we then heading towards what will be seen invariably in future, some kind of unbreakable physical limit of scaling?
It's a great question. The current AI models, as you said, right, are being powered by AI chips from AMD, NVIDIA, etc., and they're going into the data centers from the cloud companies, the Microsofts and others. And Synopsys is the leading provider of electronic design automation tools to design those chips and design the systems that use those chips. What is going on is now those things used to be designed by humans, but the pace of innovation in these chips is increasing, the complexity is increasing. And so something that an AI chip from NVIDIA would take maybe 2 years to design is now being designed in a year. Something that had 100 million transistors now has 1 trillion transistors in it. So it's impossible for a human designer using EDA tools to design those chips. So what we are working on is using what is called agentic engineers, agents that are doing the job of the human engineers to automate that process and accelerate the pace of innovation. Because these AI data centers are incredibly complex systems because you have to manage the power, the thermal, and all of those things. And it is impossible for a human designer to take care of these multidisciplinary optimizations. Those are things that are now being done with the Synopsys tools.
Okay, Keshav, on one hand is what is being called by our executive editor-in-chief, Kalipuri, digital imperialism. And on the other hand is what India aims for, which is AI that listens, understands, and acts. How do you make AI inclusive then?
Thanks, Maria, for the wonderful introduction. I've never heard models in AI models be introduced like that before. So I run a company called Equal AI. It's a call assistant. It picks up your phone, speaks on your behalf, and then in the future will do tasks for you, help them direct people to your use cases. So it's a consumer app. For our use case, we're seeing insane amount of need, want, because you get a lot of calls actually nowadays. Even with the advent of quick commerce, you get a lot of OTPs, you get addresses, which is much more frequent, apart from telemarketing and other aspects. One of the biggest challenges that I see in AI infra is that actually India is a DAO farm for most global companies. There are millions and hundreds of millions of active daily users. But the infrastructure is not there. Even for, we scaled 4x last week, and we peaked out on all of our partners. And the good thing or the bad thing is that they were elastic, but after a point, you have to buy dedicated TPUs, you have to ensure scale up, the concurrency needs, because we are a real-time use case. So essentially, we would need real-time streaming part of the infra stack. And that's not there actually. And I know a lot of people have made statements of building assets for India, but those come live in 2 years, 18 months, 24 months. And so demand is not going to wait as a consumer company. So I think there are challenges in being able to deliver the demand, but people using AI in India, I mean, it's blowing up actually. People are loving using it.
Yes, of course, many would say that it's a little messy right now, but the data centers are being built. There is infrastructure in terms of mobility, and the focus is also on what was there earlier. India is trying to build on it. So, Martin, we are racing to closed AI empires. How do you actually then build an open, non-aligned infra backbone?
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for asking. I think what's important to think about when we think of the infrastructure is not to only focus on the bricks and mortar. So the compute is important, the data centers is important. We'll talk about the environmental impacts, I'm sure, in a second. I'd encourage all of us to make a link to the session just before this one, and to also think about data as infrastructure, and to think about open source as infrastructure. So I think we're making a mistake. There's a lot of conversations about AI sovereignty. I think AI sovereignty is critical, but is often misunderstood. There are very few countries around the world. I would even put a question mark as to whether the US and China can actually be fully sovereign when it comes to AI, and I actually don't think they should be. I don't think anyone really should be. What we want, I would say what the public wants, in our understanding and from surveys, is agency over how AI is used in their lives or not used in their lives. And I can think of no better way to have that agency, to have as many layers of the stack as open source as possible, so they can be used, shared, and modified, so people can really sort of like get stuck in and understand it. So I think that's critical. So on the infrastructure piece, I would really encourage us to think of open source as a critical part of the infrastructure that needs investment. The good news is that open source, doesn't have the environmental externalities that data centers do. It's also a lot cheaper than buying, hundreds of thousands in NVIDIA GPUs. And at the same time, to think of data as part of the critical infrastructure, ways in which, and I'll just finish with that, we've had fantastic innovation around compute, but very little innovation really over the past 10 years when it comes to data. If we had a fraction of the world's brains and money and power focused on data governance, on technical innovations around data, so we can use personal data in safe ways, on governance innovations around data, I think that would be fantastic. And I can think of no better place to do it than India.
Since you brought in the environmental aspect of it, let me bring in Samita now. Samita, AI data centers are seen as units that guzzle energy, and they heat up cities as well. How do we make AI infra then resilient to fight that crisis?
Thank you so much. So data centers are important. We can't minus it. It's like as much as you have power, there is lights. We're talking. It's become a very critical part of our lives. The growth of power today to have electricity in every mile, in every last mile, has taken its own years, and it has been driven by a need. So is the growth of data centers. So that fundamental understanding of having data centers is absolutely important when we think of energy. Now, as development happens, and India is going to invest 1 billion in infrastructure, it's going to contribute to that energy consumption and energy release at the same time, in the same way that data centers do. Now, what data centers can do differently are two things. Number one, at the time of construction of a data center itself, if there are ways of using AI to understand the environmental nuances of that location. So if you can understand that there is a water network or a water system already flowing in there, there's a large patch of vegetation, there is a road there that has already been there is a settlement, and factor that when you are constructing a data center, that's the first level of resilience, which we call as a practitioner in the terms of climate adaptation. The other one, which is of course the suffix and prefix of climate today, is carbon emission, which also is as critical as climate adaptation. And for that, the data centers that are getting built today are very modernized. Even at a rack rate, they're able to optimize the energy they consume to be able to churn that level of intelligence and data. And this panel is equipped to answer that. The data centers that used to get constructed even 5 years back, and the data centers that are getting constructed today are more architecturally sound, so that the energy consumption is minimized. It's also built with sustainable materials and building materials. so that it can also, it cannot forfeit the entire amount of energy consumed and the carbon emission, but it can minimize. But considering the fact that data centers are going to be absolutely essential in the ecosystem of things that we are talking about, and especially with, we are part of the AI Summit, which is computing, generating, and agentifying more than petabytes of data at the same time to be able to give us the intelligence we need across sectors of life. So that would be my understanding of data center, and I truly believe the data centers are modernized today, much, much than where we used to be even 5 years back.
Okay, so let's talk about one big idea which is on display at Bharat Mandapam. What do you think will be the idea of tomorrow? Prith.
So I would say there's a lot of discussion today on AI models, but those are AI models for words as tokens, right? I mean, people have been working on AI for many, many years, but until ChatGPT happened in 2022, nobody really knew what was going on. And what ChatGPT did was bring AI to the average person, right? So that you could write poetry, you could write essays and so on. But all of those are using words as tokens. But then, after that, there was DALL-E that came in with using images as tokens. And so now you could create all kinds of things with images. You could create new images. You can say, I want to create a picture of a Boeing airplane hitting a Golden Gate Bridge, which is a bad example, but you don't have to have an actual picture like that. It would generate that picture. Sora did it with videos as tokens. But the future is what we call physical AI. The world around us is governed by the laws of physics, which is, say, fluids physics, which is Navier-Stokes equations, or structural physics, which is Euler equations, or electromagnetics physics, which is Maxwell's equations. So Synopsys just recently acquired ANSYS. I used to be CTO at ANSYS before. So we believe that the real future in AI infrastructure will be using physical AI, where the real world around us has world models, those different physics that I talked about, and it will understand that physics and be able to reason and say, here's an airplane. I mean, you were just talking about the data center and understand the environment. It would actually look at the physics of here is a water, here's something, and because of the water, you could actually do liquid cooling, understanding the world around you, building those world physics models, physical AI, that is actually the future.
So physical artificial intelligence, how will it really work?
So what it works is, as I said, with words as tokens, you are using tokenized words, right? You're saying, Mary has a little lamb, right? So basically you have scraped all the words in the English language and says, when you have Mary has a little, you predict the last word will be lamb. Or, I wish you a Merry Christmas. That's how words as tokens are used in foundational models. Now if you, instead of those words, you use images, then you can essentially say from this image to this image to this image, what is the next image? That's Gen AI applied to images. Then you do the same with videos. You have a video screen here, etc. You will predict the next video. So the physical AI is saying, just like, suppose I were to increase my temperature here, at some point I'll burn, I'll do whatever. That is the physics. It will predict the physics of the world around us, and that is incredibly computationally difficult, right? But it will be very, very powerful because it will actually, Artemis mission is sending NASA's thing to the space, right, to the moon. Imagine those things are being designed by NASA engineers. In the future, physical AI will be able to design a spacecraft with AI which will understand the physics of an aircraft going through the physics of gravity and how it comes back. That's where the world is headed.
Okay, since India is aiming for making AI more accessible, making it for every citizen, so Keshav, which tool do you think is powerful enough right now to ensure that AI is democratized?
See, the way Indians will use AI at scale. So there are studies saying that over 1 billion people in India have never used AI. I mean, we are sitting in a room which is a cohort who uses it very often. But I'm saying, like, look at rural India consumers, they don't know a white screen when they can't type very well and they can't read very well is not a mode for them to actually use it. So it has to be conversational. That's the first thing. Second, conversational, multilingual with dialects, that is still improving. With every model company, they are improving. Actually, one point is on open source. I really hope, and I know that we're working on a lot of stuff. The government is working on a lot of stuff, and that will be very exciting. And then the next feature, which I think the next application that will be wide scale used in India will be voice, very simple, and it doesn't need to be labeled as AI. It needs to be so simple. Indians love options, but love simplicity.
That's right.
So if you look at any UPI app, it's cluttered, but has very simple actions. I think an AI assistant or anything that works at scale in India will be something which is speech-oriented and very simple. I don't think that exists at scale, what Indians can use at scale. And that's kind of the direction which a lot of people are trying, including Equal is trying to do that with voice first. There's a reason we're doing calls first and voice first, because very natural. And then we move into doing tasks for you. And then we do end-to-end tasks for you, for everything that you want to do.
So earlier today, we had Professor Raskar, who is with MIT Media Lab. He had a very interesting idea, which is already in motion, which is about Doot. Every Indian, just as an Aadhaar, will have an AI agent of their own. So perhaps a Keshav AI agent. Yeah. And that AI agent will be communicating with a Maria AI agent or a Sameta AI agent and functioning at that level. That is finally perhaps the aim. Do you think, how far are we to that level of that kind of scale where each and every person sitting in this room will have their own AI agent?
Very soon, 12 to 18 months. It's actually just a
12
modality.
to 18 months?
Yeah, easily. Because if you're using any platform that is using natively AI and then you call me and I call you and our agents speak, it's actually not that far away on basic communication. But doing a lot more complex tasks will still take some more time, because obviously you have more nuances that come around it. But communication should be there very soon. Today, we do millions of calls. A lot of those calls are from AI agents, which your AI agent is speaking back, right? So that's already happening at a business to consumer level. Consumer to consumer level will happen. When UPI started, nobody thought UPI will be a peer-to-peer money sharing platform. They thought it will be meant for businesses to customers or customers to businesses. But now 90% is largely peer-to-peer.
Yes,
So you'll see a lot of innovation there, I feel.
Yes, so Martin, the fact is that India has adopted something called the UPI and the scale at which and the pace at which it was adopted. Every person right now on the street is perhaps having a UPI app on their phone and they're using it for basic shopping of vegetables and others. Do you see AI becoming so accessible at the same time?
Thanks for asking. So very linked to the question you were just asking, Keshav. I completely agree on the voice piece. I think that I find it hard to reconcile the fact that, and I'm certainly not an expert in India, to be clear, but I find it hard to reconcile the two things you were saying earlier. One of them is that 1 billion people don't use AI, and at the same time that every Indian will be interacting with an agent. At Current AI, we've been working with Bashni, the translation platform, which is fantastic. And we've been developing, together with them, a very simple open hardware product that we're launching on Friday at the summit. And what that product does, and that I can see it used by everyone, is a voice translation mechanism, right? Very simple. You can be in any use case. You could be a farmer looking in a field at a particular sort of, pesticide or other, and it will not only translate what someone tells you, but it'll also analyze the text and either speak it back to you or have it back to you, whichever you wish. And this is a very basic open hardware tool. Anyone can make it. We're not designing it to sell it, but for anyone to be able to mess with it in the spirit of the maker movement. And it would also be able to tell what's in front of you. So if you cannot see well, if you're blind, it will be able to say, right, and it will speak to you in your language and say, right, here are a few stairs, you might need to watch out. So that type of an approach, especially something that's available to all to make and to sort of mess with, I can see that being really sort of taken up at quite an interesting scale.
Just to clarify, I think I was mentioning that apps today at India's scale, those are not there, but your application use case is very relevant. It doesn't need to look like AI, but it works at that intelligence layer. So I agree with you.
Okay, Samit.
I would like to add just one thing here, that all these, first of all, the EPI is an absolutely amazing innovation that happened in
Yes.
India. And I live in the US, and I mean, people in the US have often wondered, had US been able to adopt a thing like EPI, wonderful things would have happened. But the EPI is a unique identifier for the humans. There are 1 billion people in India, right? But there are 100 billion machines. There'll be 1 trillion machines, right? The world of Internet of Things, IoT. So, and I was talking about physical AI. So imagine if all the humans and the machines, all of it had that unique ID, and then, and these machines are generating data, like just the humans are generating data, right? You can gather all that information. That's that physical AI I'm talking about. That combined, the human interacting with the machines would be the absolute end state of AI, in my opinion.
So hyperlocal risk tools.
I'm just saying that, the question almost fell on the lap. Okay, no, fantastic. I love the conversation of mimicking AI. Again, always have human assistance in the loop. That's a fundamental of science for us, because we deal in disasters, natural disasters. We can't just let everything on a machine. Hyperlocal AI is just taking your conversation. It's happening today. If you test a product called Resilience 360, 30 minutes, give us any location anywhere in the world. We are able to tell you that structure is at what exposure if flood happens. It's not forecasting flood. It's saying go with the open premise that the flood will happen. It's modeled in such a way, considering environmental factors, considering the construction factors, considering built environment, which is physical, and considering all the climatic factors together. Think of it, a machine is doing that at an abnormal speed, in 30 minutes, able to give you a risk score. Explainable to an ordinary person like me. Heavily computed so much and trained that in 30 minutes is able to give you a result. But at the same time, it's physical infrastructures having a unique ID of its own. It's just started with a risk score of a natural disaster. We can start adding things like risk around healthcare. Can it command or become an incident command center? Can it tomorrow become a 3-story building, and being able to visualize it at a rapid scale and start doing the construction itself, visualizing the construction before the construction happens? Those are the advanced cases, but completely agree with the entire panel that having human assistance in the loop when we do hyperlocal is essential. Otherwise, there will be errors, and those errors are going to be expensive. That's the only caveat we use when we build our models on physical AI.
So, since we're talking about physical AI, and our next panel is, of course, on healthcare, and we have Dr. Trehan in the right now with us, so he'll be speaking about it. We'll shift focus on that in a bit. So let me begin with you, Martin, and start wrapping up this conversation. We are looking at the scale, and this is the scale of AI which is being built for in a country such as ours for 1.4 billion people. So not just physical AI, we are looking at how making AI accessible and ensuring that there's no digital divide. The challenges in a country such as ours is very, very different. So where do you see current AI fitting in?
I think, okay, so 2 pieces, and I might try and link it to the panel afterwards. I think one of the many incredible things in India is the diversity of languages. So just to go back to earlier point, I gave that example of the translation device. You were talking about voice. The fact that a platform like Bashni is already working in 26, soon to be 22, soon to be 36 different languages. I think that type of scale and leaning into it is really important. My concern for any country, be it one on the huge scale of India or others, is that AI risks flattening our culture into a monoculture or a small few monocultures. So I think of linguistic diversity really as culture and as cultural preservation. So one of the first places to start is not only having the AI working and being able to talk to it in different languages, but for the data to be available and accessible with the wealth of cultures that you have in a country like India. That would be the first place. I think one of the hardest areas to work in, and one of them which is so close to everyone's hearts, is around health. And the health, I think the challenge there is around, back to the earlier panel, around privacy protections for people to feel comfortable sharing patient treatment outcome data and sharing genetic data. And that's why I think India, as well as any country really, has a lot to do to innovate in that area.
Oh, okay, Keshav.
I'm super excited with the AI Summit. You know, we were there, we presented in a booth, and it was outstanding. I think if you look at the sheer scale and the quality of people, and every single serious leader of AI, barring a few, were there, I think we're onto something big. The government is doing a really good job bringing all the resources together. I'm a firm believer that if India will use AI at scale, it has to be simple, it has to be reasonable and cheap priced, so it has to be open sourced, and it has to be available at a lot of languages and available very freely. So I think I would imagine that in the next 24 months, there'll be a lot of this will start opening up, and we are ready for an AI world where India, everyone uses AI for everything.
Okay. 30 seconds to both of you.
No, fantastic. I think, and I believe in it. The fact that we're talking about technology,
Yes.
Think of your WhatsApp, it doesn't have a digital divide. I don't think the AI will ever have a digital divide, because it's more focused on the applications of AI and less on just the stack itself. And when an application becomes the subject of the conversation, then that application, be it health sector, or be it climate, or be it environment, or for that matter, chip design, it is democratized. And it will always be democratized. For language, for any other models, it will be democratized. I don't believe that AI is going to create a digital divide.
Prith, let's wrap this up.
And what I would share with the audience is that the future is about intelligent product design, products in every field: automotive, aerospace, healthcare, energy, and high tech. And in that world, we kind of have three pillars. One is it is silicon design. So there'll be a chip inside that system, which will be software driven. There'll be a software that runs on it, but it'll be AI powered. So it's AI powered, silicon design, software designed intelligent systems with which you can build digital twins of everything in the world: an automobile, an aerospace, airplane, data center, whatever. And it's that incredibly exciting world that we are working towards.
All right. Thank you so much for this conversation, Martin, Keshav, Samita, and Prith. Thank you.
Thank you.